there's a lot more art in this book than there is normally, and you had a very specific direction that you wanted to see, or there was a specific direction that happened where you don't see people's faces, you don't see everything that's happening.
Correct. Yeah, it was Kate, Irwin, and I sort of came up with a list of stuff that every artist sort of had to internalize in order to get them the mood right. And one of the things you just mentioned is in Icewind Dale in the cold, when everybody needs to be bundled up. And when we say bundled up, we mean you can barely see that they're, what they are. And so if you see a character in art, they're just like a mass of clothes and fur and stuff like that, to create that mystery or sense of we don't know who they are. They have no identity as far as you're concerned. And for Icewind Dale, that's a good thing. They don't want to know who you are. Or they don't want you to know who they are. So reinforcing the idea that this is a dark, cold place. So we don't see the sun in the sky in most illustrations, which presents challenges because art is like black and dark. You're not going to see anything. So coming up with light sources in illustration was an interesting conversation. For instance, there's one illustration that takes place in an ice cave. Well, you have to sort of contrive a way for there to be light in that scene, whether it's somebody holding a torch or there's some will-o'-wisp-like thing in the air or some such. But that's a new thing that we were challenged with again and again and again as we were going through and doing the art. The other thing is Icewind Dale is a star in this product. So we wanted pieces that just showed off. And so a lot more environments, a lot more location illustrations than we've ever done before, focusing a little less on character and more on that. There were a huge number of monsters in this book, and so there's a lot of monster illustrations in the book as well, some of which show monsters in their environment and some of which are more like our classic illustrations, which just kind of stand on their own. A lot of the art came unexpectedly. For instance, there's a piece of art that shows Old Bitey, which is a knucklehead trout mounted on a plaque. That wouldn't have been in the product at all, except Rime, one of our concept artists, did it on a whim. Asked her to do some knucklehead trout concepts, and she put one of the head like on a plaque, right? So she put it on a plaque with a sign under it that said "Old Bitey." When I saw that, which was absolutely amazed by it, I wrote it into the adventure. So some art actually created elements in the adventure that hadn't existed before. Now, Old Bitey's a special guy. He's a fish who fought long and hard not to be caught, was eventually caught, mounted above the Northlook Tavern in Bryn Shander, but then some wizard cast a spell on its thrash whenever somebody gets too close to it and occasionally bursts into song.
I was gonna say, someone's either it does or you're casting magic mouth on it, just to get it to happen. I adore that.
A lot of stuff came the backwards route, which is to say the art inspired the text instead of the other way around, and I love that. I love that kind of collaboration.
It feels very much like a monsters menagerie of that's the thing I've always like a zoo of monsters, and the fact that you have so many monsters and so much art is very exciting because this almost sounds like another monster manual for me.
There's a lot of good multi, and not just monsters that you can use in an adventure like this, but a lot of good multi-purpose monsters. Something we haven't really talked about. We talked about the art. We talked about the themes and such. We haven't talked about all the people who worked on it.
Yeah.
It's probably worth noting that while the story itself was basically created before anybody outside the company became involved, I don't think this adventure would have gotten to the place it got to without contributions from a number of very talented freelancers, some of whom I'd worked with before, but many of whom I had not. And there was a period back before I started writing this where I went on Twitter and I basically just asked people, hey, shoot me the names. Hey, Twitter universe, shoot me the names of people you think are doing, good work in the D&D community these days. And I got bombarded with a bunch of suggestions. And in a number of cases, I had multiple people suggesting the same names over and over and over again. And it is from that deluge that I basically pulled a bunch of folks out and then contacted them individually with small little assignments all related to this story. But that list includes, let's see, folks that I got to work with for the first time on this story include Stacey Allen, H. Carlin, Celeste Konowich, Michaela Ebel, Anne Gregerson, Chad Quant, and Ashley Warren. And that was a fun experience. It was fun from the point of view of, hey, here's this story I have. What pieces interest you? What parts of it would you like to tackle and bring to life? And then it was also fun to see them as a group conspire, and start to add their own things in the story. Like I never anticipated, and when I outlined the book and wrote the material that they would need to basically riff on, that mountain goats would play such an important role. They apparently conspired on their own to make sure that they put mountain goats, in as many different logical places as possible. And so when I got their work back and I started to read through it, I started to see this recurring motif of mountain goats showing up everywhere.
Pre-order Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frostmaiden now on D&D Beyond, and get exclusive pre-order rewards, including digital dice.